You believe you know André Rieu, the waltz mastermind who lights up venues with music and enchantment. But there was a hidden world waiting beyond the cheers and glittering performances. Slick automobiles sparkled, and dust swirled as the garage doors slowly opened. However, there was something in one corner that no fan could have predicted. The world had never seen the side of André Rieu that was inside. Everyone was rendered utterly stunned by what they discovered. The name André Rieu reverberated around the world's performance halls. They dubbed him the King of the Waltz, a guy whose song had raised spirits above the tallest stage lights and filled hearts with ecstasy. He had been brilliant on stage. Every bow was gracefully brushed, every grin meticulously calibrated. His concerts were more than just shows. The extravagant costumes, flowing motions, and the subtle charm of centuries-old waltzes brought to life had all been part of the great celebrations. For a few hours the world seemed light and lovely as audiences applauded and cameras flashed. However, a life that was much less apparent was hidden behind the shimmering curtains and standing ovations. André, who was born in Maastricht, the Netherlands, was surrounded by music and his family's gentle discipline. He got his love of melody and his drive for success from his violinist father. Music had always been more than a vocation. It had evolved into a route to greater things. He wasn't content to perform in small orchestras or smaller halls. He made the Johann Strauss Orchestra a worldwide sensation by founding it in 1987. His aspirations went beyond music to include the economic sector. Before long, he was more than just a performer. He was a master businessman meticulously constructing his own empire. This achievement wasn't achieved easily. André had freely acknowledged that he had taken financial chances that might have destroyed everything he had worked so hard to achieve. The cost of the enormous stage sets, lights, carriages, and fountains had been enormous. Even a maestro with the entire world at his feet felt the weight of doubt weighing down during those times when the balance sheet was shockingly red. Beneath the self-assured smile, the careful bow, and the happy song, he had battled worries few could fathom. André Rieu was viewed by the world as a man who made music enchanting and a symbol of romance and joy. However, he had to face the shadows of chances that nearly broke him and the echoes of remorse during peaceful times. Although he presented a stunning image, stress simmered beneath the surface. Every successful concert concealed a tale of anxiety and sacrifice. A meticulously planned life that occasionally ebbs and flows. A more profound tale surfaced as the spotlight on his public persona dimmed. Millions of people revered this renowned maestro, but only in the seclusion of his castle, where the music faded and the man behind the waltz silently came to life, were the whispers of risk and doubt that lingered within him. André Rieu had always envisioned a house that reflected his heritage and his creativity, one that matched the majesty of his music. Mastery made that desire come true when he bought a little castle that looked like it belonged in a fairy tale. It seemed as though the past had been preserved specifically for him because of the turreted walls, the centuries-old stonework, and the Baroque features. He had dreamed of a place like this since he was a young child, a haven from the never-ending whirlwind of touring, cameras, and acclaim. His music was almost as romantic as the castle's past. It was said to have originated in the 15th century, and Rieu frequently mentioned its legends with a twinkle in his eye. He loved the story of D'Artagnan, the renowned musketeer from Three Musketeers, who was rumored to have resided inside its walls. He was captivated by that historical connection. It was like entering a realm of legends where every stone had seen a secret, a drama, a victory, or a betrayal. It was no easy task to acquire the property. Rieu redoubled his efforts and eventually claimed the castle some 20 years ago. He put all of his energy into creating a haven because it was the realization of a cherished ambition. The rooms were opulent but cozy, full of art, music, and memories. Gardens outside were a riot of color. Exotic plants were cultivated in a greenhouse, while peaceful areas provided time for introspection and seclusion. Each component was thoughtfully chosen. a stage of his own apart from the international venues on which he appeared. However, the house's opulence had a price. His frequently ostentatious artistic vision was not limited to the performance arena. He had once been badly in debt due to fountains, extravagant sets, ice rinks, and carriages. This similar spirit of aspiration was evident in the castle. Despite its beauty and tranquility, everything had purpose and nothing was routine. It stood for the dreams he still carried and the life he had created. But there was a mystery in the midst of the beauty. Even close friends were generally unaware of a part of the house that was unexplored by guests. The hum of life hardly penetrated the gloomy, silent area. It included something intimate, confidential, and oddly alluring. A fragment of André's existence that he had kept concealed, unaltered by time, and that included tales he had never shared. It was a spot that seemed to be alive with echoes of introspection, sorrow, and recollection. It included confessions, meaningful artifacts, and reminders of André Rieu's secret existence, all of which were waiting to be discovered by the public. In André Rieu's garage, a cloud of dust swirled in the sunlight, as the massive doors were pushed wide with a groan. There was a slight smell of old rubber and grease in the air, a blend that talked about well-maintained cars that are rarely seen by strangers. Slowly, the group of reporters and documentarians entered, their footfall resonating against the stone floor. A sense of hushed eagerness that was almost electrifying pervaded the atmosphere. It was more than a garage. It was a secret part of a life that the world believed to be familiar. The line of cars, each meticulously parked as though they were waiting for its owner, caught their attention right away. A 2007 Mercedes-Benz 65 AMG with a large wheelbase was positioned at the far end. The car shone through layers of dust, but its actual function was instantly apparent due to the strong metal plating and reinforced windows. It was more than just a fancy car. With a 6.0 LV12 dual-turbo engine that could generate about 612 horsepower, it was a mobile fortification. André had once put the automobile up for sale. It had driven 109,321 kilometers, or about 67,900 mi, according to the advertisement. The car revealed a lot about its owner. It implied that security was just as important to him as prestige, that there was a vulnerable person underneath the happy performances and smiling facade. A Tesla Model S was waiting silently further along. André looked completely different in the sleek electric car. In contrast to the armored Mercedes, the Tesla represented sustainability, modernism, and subtle grace. It implied a forward-thinking personality, one that welcomed innovation while maintaining realism. The differences between the two vehicles provided a unique window into his character. He was both sensible and bold, careful and brave, a man who struck a balance between his personal vision and the pressures of fame. The autos themselves, however, were hardly the most shocking finding. A tiny envelope was partially concealed by a protective cover and tucked away in a dark spot. It was ancient, crumpled a little, but carefully sealed. There was a letter inside, written by André himself. The words contained the weight of unsaid thoughts, muttered worries, and regrets from the past. They showed the expensive price of pursuing a dream, moments of uncertainty, and sacrifices made for beauty. None of his viewers had ever witnessed such a feeling of vulnerability. The garage was more than just a group of cars for the first time. It became a window into his double existence, the inner battles that went on behind the scenes of success. Cars were no longer kept in the garage. It was a storehouse of history, mysteries, and a truth that had been patiently waiting to be discovered. No audience could have predicted the secrets contained in the letter discovered in André Rieu's garage. The secrets of a life filled with love, music, and celebrity were concealed on its fragile paper, a secluded realm distant from the glitzy shows and devoted audience. It discussed happiness, longing, regret, and the fine line André had had to walk between his achievement in the public eye and his own heart. Early in the 1970s, André got to know Marjorie Kaufman. They had clicked right away, their hearts and brains aligning. Marjorie was as passionate about music as he was, and he could relate to his desire to master the waltz. They got married in 1975, beginning a relationship that would shape André's professional and personal lives. Marjorie was not just a wife. By overseeing tours, planning costumes, and taking care of the innumerable details that let André shine on stage, she developed into a crucial member of his team. As he brought music to millions, she kept his empire's machinery in good working order. They had 2 boys together. The oldest, Pierre, joined André's production company after growing up in his father's industry. He established himself as a reliable partner, assisting with tour management and making sure that the Johann Strauss Orchestra's performances continued to meet his father's exacting standards. Work and family life were closely intertwined. There was a continual tug-of-war between the two. André frequently discussed how music reflects emotion, and he thought that the waltz were a reflection of life itself. The music taught audiences to embrace both joy and melancholy in equal measure. Although the letter highlighted moments of doubt, he appeared to abide by this concept in private as well. He had occasionally been taken and far from home when touring, which caused him to feel a great deal of emotional strain. He hardly acknowledged the ways in which celebrity had lured him. On certain nights, he questioned whether his unrelenting drive for achievement might cause his marriage to fall apart. There were times when his love for Marjorie collided with his need for attention and dread of failing. And private confession, a chapter of long-suppressed love and trepidation, was described in the letter. André said that he occasionally struggled to balance his vows with his goals. The statements were honest, unvarnished, and unlike anything he had ever told anyone. Beneath decades of charm and self-assurance, they exposed a weakness, a reminder that the very human struggles of loyalty and love plagued even the greatest maestros. André and Marjorie persevered in the face of these personal storms. Their relationship, which combined professional collaboration with personal devotion, remained unwavering. There was more to the letter's conclusion than just regret. It also honored tenacity, the unsung triumphs of dedication, and the profound comprehension that enabled them to withstand years of touring, publicity, and the demands of celebrity. His romantic life was no longer merely a public persona. Few had seen its fragility and depth. The letter's secrets alluded to the hardships that molded him, heartfelt struggles that reflected the highs and lows of the music he performed for the world. The weight of years of uncertainty and hardship was also present in the letter discovered in André Rieu's garage. André wrote in his own hand about the storms he had encountered, the restless nights he had spent worried about money, criticism, and the thin line that separated art from amusement. André has always welcomed opulence. There was more to his concerts than just performances. They were pageantry, music, and light displays, a superb fusion of entertainment and artistry that captivated viewers around. However, he was also criticized for the very things that made him a celebrity. He was frequently charged by classical purists with putting showmanship ahead of musical purity. They accused him of transforming the delicate art of the waltz into a public spectacle, and criticized his performances as being overly dramatic and commercial. Long after the cheering had subsided, their remarks continued. Risk to finances had always been present. André's ambition was unbounded and went well beyond the stage. He once constructed a Schönbrunn Palace facsimile for a single performance. He reportedly owed 34 million euros for the project. Audiences were pleased by the extravagance, but accountants were frightened. Even when failure appeared certain, he had staked huge wagers on the idea that spectacle, music, and beauty could inspire the world. Classical circles were not the only sources of criticism. Envy and jealousy silently trailed him. Some said he was fortunate and that timing, rather than hard work, was the key to his success. André acknowledged that he had frequently heard such assertions, but he maintained that years of diligence were the source of every note, every performance, and every business choice. He had dedicated decades of self-control, late nights, and meticulous preparation to making the Johann Strauss Orchestra a household name. He struggled to balance his roles as a well-known entertainer and a serious musician. Managing his own business had its own set of difficulties. Large expenses were incurred in managing intricate shows, paying for expensive tours, and hiring a sizable orchestra. Public scrutiny was sparked by press rumors about luxury or overspending. André's own anxieties at these times were exposed in the letter. The fear that he may let those who trusted him the most down or fail them. But he rebuilt. To bounce back from losses and regain stability, he depended on his charisma, his devoted fan base, and the steady caliber of his music. Resilience and introspection are demonstrated by the letter's quiet resolve at the end. He may have been hailed as the Waltz King, but beneath the glitter, cheers, and sequins was a past filled with failure, bets, and jabs from detractors. André's biggest issue, the letter made plain, had never been with other people. He had been with himself. The burdensome task of transforming passion into art for the world to witness, as well as the unrelenting quest of excellence. André's equilibrium was impacted by a viral ear infection in 2010. The impact was terrifying for a musician whose life depended on timing, coordination, and accuracy. Schedules were thrown off, concerts were postponed, and the meticulously planned rhythm of his life felt unexpectedly brittle. The secret fear that swept through him as he struggled to recover control over a body that seemed to betray him was incomprehensible to his fans. According to sources, he had to cancel performances in 2024 after a second viral infection reportedly damaged his vestibular nerve. There was a genuine risk to his company. Large orchestras, elaborate stage designs, meticulous planning, and devoted employees who relied on each performance were all necessary for tours. Concert cancellations or postponements were more than just an emotional setback. It put his business, his image, and the decades-long trust he had earned in jeopardy. More than these occurrences were disclosed in the letter. André talked of the emotional toll, the evenings he spent thinking about what was most important in life while staring at the ceiling and wondering how long he could go on. He acknowledged that his condition had caused him to reevaluate his legacy. On stage, the music that had always seemed magical suddenly had a deeper significance. Every note served as a reminder of mortality, the fleeting nature of life, and the importance of putting all of one's love and heart into every performance. André showed resiliency despite the fact that recovery was never simple. He recovered his strength with the help of his sons, his wife Marjorie, and the dedicated staff that managed his orchestra. He was able to return to the stage with greater strength and awareness than before, thanks to physical therapy, cautious rest, and sheer willpower. Following those health scares, every concert was laden with a sense of success, a quiet victory against weakness. André's lifelong conviction that music heals was strengthened by these encounters. He had always thought of the waltz as a mirror of life, one that could reflect both joy and sorrow. That worldview was strengthened by his personal health struggles. Music evolved from a gift for others to a means of self-healing, a link between resilience and fragility. Towers of light and melody went silent when sickness struck, making André face his own death. He was now compelled to look for significance in vulnerability and the fleeting beauty of life itself, as the same unvarnished, regretful words from the garage letter reverberated louder. He understood that the music would go on, and that he would too in those silent, shadowed moments. André Rieu has created a great life by fusing hard work, ability, and vision. He was now regarded as a worldwide cultural figure in addition to being the Waltz King. His net worth, according to a number of estimates, is over $40 million US. He amassed this wealth via decades of hard work, ingenuity, and entrepreneurial spirit. He was more than a performance. He coordinated international tours, records, and merchandising, in addition to running his own production company and creating an internationally acclaimed orchestra. Every concert, album, and meticulously orchestrated performance added to a flourishing business that showcased his organizational prowess and artistic brilliance. André made a significant cultural impact. He had made light classical music and waltzes accessible to large audiences, turning what was hitherto thought of as a specialty genre into a worldwide worldwide phenomenon. There was more to his concerts than just shows. Audiences were captivated by these encounters, which combined music, passion, and theatricality. He had built a bridge between classical tradition and contemporary entertainment by making his orchestra a worldwide brand, enabling millions of people to enjoy the beauty of the waltz. He left behind an equally remarkable personal legacy. Maastricht's castle served as a representation of his origins and aspirations. A life centered on harmony, beauty, and family was reflected in the turreted walls, opulent gardens, and peaceful retreats. It was a place where André could enjoy a quiet world away from the spotlight, refuel, and prepare his next big project. Where music lived not just on stage but in everyday life. André's life remained busy and full despite touring for decades. He kept performing all around the world, and his concerts drew enormous crowds. He was greeted by crowded halls and thunderous applause in cities throughout Europe, Asia, and the Americas. He had adapted touring as a means of sharing his music while preserving the fire and vigor that had characterized his career. Even now, he had a busy schedule, but he made time for relaxation and introspection to ensure that his goals in both his personal and professional lives were fulfilled. His family was still very important to him, as his sons, especially Pierre, worked closely with the production company. His wife, Marjorie, remained a key part of his business, managing tours, costumes, and logistics. Together, they made sure that André's vision and the orchestra's legacy went smoothly, transferring to a new generation the ideals and knowledge gained from decades of commitment. In the present, André's life was a combination of success, happiness, and meaning. Audiences continued to like his concerts. His personal life was centered on family and home, while his orchestra continued to be a major cultural influence on a worldwide scale. He had created more than just wealth. He had left behind a lasting legacy that blended vision, love, and music. He demonstrated that success was about passion, dedication, and the capacity to uplift millions of people with the timeless beauty of music by remaining dedicated to the art that had defined him, even as the world hailed his performances. How do you feel about André Rieu's amazing journey from high-profile performances to personal victories? Leave a comment below with your opinions.